Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to Celestial Compass. I'm Kathy Beal of EmpowermentUnlimited.net, and I'm really happy today to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is the beloved magazine, The Mountain Astrologer. For decades, it has enlightened and entertained professionals and students and fans of astrology, and it has now been relaunched as a multimedia publication by the London School of Astrology. And I have with us the principal of the London School of Astrology, Frank Clifford, who's an astrologer, an author, and a longtime Mountain Astrologer contributor. So welcome, Frank. Thank you so much.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be back.
So my memory is I actually did not see the Mountain Astrologer in its very first incarnation. It started as it's had a very interesting journey, so I want to go over it just a little bit. It started as a newsletter, a really small newsletter in a tiny town in Colorado called Nederland. Have you seen any of the early issues?
I've seen photocopies of them, but I don't have an original in my hands. I've got pretty much the last few hundred behind me here, and all filed in numerical order. So, but no, I haven't seen the originals. No.
Oh, but you're a repository of the others, because at some point it was founded in 87. At some point in the late 80s, early 90s, it became a full-blown magazine, and I encountered it in the oddest way. There was I was real active in the zine world in the 90s, 80s and 90s. And I had a publication that I got called Funny Times that excerpted humorous things. And I came across this hysterical, how the signs are celebrating Thanksgiving by a guy with a really weird name. And there was something about Aries chasing the Pisces with a steamroller. And I went, this is great. And I subscribed to the magazine because of that. And became, before you got involved with it, I was a humor contributor quite a bit. And at one point I had a long piece about how communication had gotten so screwy that obviously Mercury has left the solar system. And I made up experts and astronomers about this. And I got a letter from someone who took me seriously.
Well, he would have loved that. Tem was a great punster and jokester, and I think it was his baby for almost 30 years, and I think that's or more than 30 years, and I think he would have adored anybody with a zany sense of humor. Yeah.
Well, he certainly published some goofy things of mine, and I appreciated that. Now, I never actually met him, but how did you become acquainted with the magazine? How did your involvement start?
Well, I think I started picking up copies in the early 90s, maybe 93, 94. I was working with Lois Rodden, the woman who created Astro Data Bank, and it seemed to be, it was the pinnacle. And I hope it still is. You know, TMA was the pinnacle of where to be published. I was already writing for the Astrological Journal in the UK, but I was afraid to submit something to TMA until I felt really ready to contribute. And so it took me a number of years before I did that. And when I did, I think it must have been many years later, about 2008, when I submitted my first article. And I met, would it have been, oh gosh, I forget the dates now, but I met up with Tem, and he was just the most unassuming triple Leo you've ever met. He was just cool and kind. He really embodied his Mars in Pisces. There was just this gentle energy about him, and I was bowled over, like I guess many people were when they met Tem. And yeah, he just had a special aura about him. And I sat down for breakfast with him one morning. I think it was 2012, UAC. I'd already been writing for the magazine from about 2009. My first big feature was the profile on Obama that they wanted. And he said, let's go for a non-American to write this. And I thought that was a great idea because I didn't have a political hat or horse in the race. So I did that, and it was a big piece. It was a cover cover piece, and I worked very hard on that, and it broke the ice, and he was very happy to give me my column, and we had a great working relationship. But a few years later, I sat down with him and I said, "When's the last time you had a holiday?" Because I knew he was a workaholic like me, and he said about 27 years ago. And
So
I said, "Well,
that's how that came about.
that's right." And he said to me, he just, it's his baby, so he was absorbed with it, and it was a conveyor belt. When you finished one issue, the next one was due, and then there was always something to do with TMA. And this, at one point, they were putting out 6 issues. I think it was 7 at one point, or even 5. It changed over the years, and so I sat down with him and I said, "You need somebody that you trust to give you a couple of months break, just to guest edit one issue." And I didn't have any concept that it would be me. I just said to him, "You need a break, you need a holiday." And on my way home from the UAC in May 2012, I think it was, I thought, you know what? I'd love to do it. I'd had a last maybe 10 years in publishing books with astrologers, my own books, etc. And I just thought I could do it. So I wrote to him and I said, I got home, I said, if you're thinking about it, how about me? And I didn't think he would take it seriously, but he got back to me a month or two later, and they'd had a big discussion, and they decided to let me be the uncle for one issue. And it was an issue that I brought in a lot of big names. I mean, we had Liz Green, Darby Costello, Michael Lutin, and we did an issue on the Expert's Guide to Interpretation. And there were about 13. It was a really super issue, and it was just, it was the beginning of a really very productive relationship where over the years I think I ended up steering about 10 issues that he handed over. He didn't have the holiday, and he didn't stop looking over my shoulder, which of course I totally understand. If it'd been my baby, I'd want to be informed. But I think he began to trust me that I was going to make some good decisions and have some good writers. So that was it was an important stage in our relationship. Yeah.
And you came up with theme issues. You would have a theme, and then you would curate who would be part of it.
It's true, yes. And I would get into trouble if I had if I sort of went for people that I didn't know, and that's where I'd be in trouble, because I wanted a particular level of writing, and I wanted a level of experience, and I'm not the sort of astrologer that has the only way to do something, but at the same time, if you're going to present something, I want you to present it as a teacher would. I want to learn as I'm reading it. And so it's one of those things where being an astrologer is one thing, being a writer is another, but being good at both is a challenge. And we have we've got some good astrologers and writers in our community. So I'd been in publishing long enough to know who to approach and who to work with. And we did theme issues on music. Cinema was the final one a few years ago.
I remember that.
Forecasting, life cycles, synastry, all of those things. And it was great fun to do. Hard work, but it was rewarding. Yeah.
And in between your guest edited issues, you had 2 different columns, didn't you?
I did at times, yes. It depended. I often encouraged and I edited other people's work and worked with them to do particular articles and features on different things. But yes, I would have a column. It was known, it was Horoscope Detective at the beginning. And then I got really into the idea of looking at the charts of an important moment of time. So it might be the signing of an agreement. It might be Rosa Parks getting arrested. It might be the first Academy Awards, or when the dingo stole Lindy Chamberlain's baby in the outback. Anything that I could get a time for that really interested me, I'd sit down and research. So the Moments in Time column, which I probably did about maybe 40, 50 of them over the years. They're just eclectic. I had such great fun researching them, and I hope it shows. Sometimes it was overly technical. Other times I just had great fun with the story and throwing some astrology in. Yeah.
And then there was at one point the time that Tem and Kate decided that they needed to hand off the magazine, and it was actually in abeyance for a little while, and then a group that called itself Egregore took it over for not a horribly long period of time,
No.
and then it just sat for a little while, and then the London School of Astrology, and you stepped in. Can you talk about how, I mean, I don't want you to disclose any secrets here, but how did that process come about? Because people were, oh no, where's my subscription? I remember looking at it like, is this going to really go away? Oh dear. Because at that point, when the Mountain Astrologer suddenly went silent, the Horoscope magazine had shut down like maybe a year before, and there was this real void of where do we get our info?
That's right. That's right. Tem, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tem died in July or August of 2019. I keep birth data in. I rarely keep death data in my head because it's accompanied with emotion and grief, etc. But I was in America. I went to see him with Linda Bird, who is a friend of mine. She's the president of NCGR, Linda Kubota Bird, and we drove over to see him in his home, and he was very ill, and we were so fortunate to see him towards the end. And he had already hired Ray Sapp, who is now Ray Rutter, and Tim really wanted us to run it together. And he'd approached me about a year before to buy it. And I even went to see a psychic. I was in China, and I got in touch with a psychic who works for me at the school sometimes and does events. We have a boat trip every year, and he used to come on there. And he thought it was the best idea ever. And I said no. And it just didn't work out on paper. It looked like it was in a precarious situation, like most magazines. I mean, it's such a tough game, and it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it is probably even worse now. So I, in spite of the psychic saying it's going to be the best thing, whatever, I said no, and Ray bought it. I still worked, and I did what I always did, and I gather from Ray that I interviewed her to talk about Tem in the first free issue that we uploaded back in June, and I gather from her that the TMA was in trouble anyway, and then Dell came along with all their remaining subscriptions and boosted that for a while. Dell disappeared in 2020, I think, and it was it was a challenge. Now, Ray, when I get emails from people, some of the criticism around the second owner, Ray, and her work is that it was too woke, it was too political, etc. Now, for me, TMA is really about astrology. And when people wrote to me and said, is it going to be still as woke as it was? I say, no, I'm going to be focusing on the astrology and leaving the political opinion or the angle out of it, because I think astrology is so broad that whatever you come to astrology with, whatever you feel about the political situation or life or religion, rights, whatever, astrology should be able to speak to you regardless. And I think Ray had a lot of guts to do what she did and to give it her voice. It just happened to be that it really didn't gel so much with the readers of the time, the long-term readers, but she had a lot of guts to do that, and so I can't help but admire her that in such a difficult arena as magazine publishing, and so I admire her doing that. I've made it, as I said, I've made it clear that Mountain Astrologer comes back with informative articles on various topics, people, profiles, etc. And I'm, as a Gemini rising, I'm trying in a way to just present the information and people can apply whatever they want to it without it being political, without it being too divisive. I mean, the world is divisive enough right now that astrology can bring people together. And I learned that from Tem back in 2015, maybe, or even earlier. He put up, it was a really interesting cover of TMA, and it was like a one-arm bandit. It was a slot machine, and it was showing slot machine cherries and different things, and it was Hillary coming up, like as though she was about to hit the jackpot and become president, Hillary Clinton. And the title on the magazine was, "Will Hillary be a one-term president?" One-term president. And Tem got so much flack for even suggesting that she might win, or the astrology in that magazine looking at her possibility of winning. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, people are really reactive sometimes. And again, I think astrology is a bit like it's a center that is open to everyone. Wherever you're coming from, whatever you believe, you can work with it. So that's been my motto in the last 6 months, really, since taking over.
And how did it come about that you stepped in?
Well, it went bankrupt. TMA went bankrupt about a year ago, and I wouldn't have mentioned that, but when I interviewed Ray, she mentioned it. So I felt I was able to tell people who emailed me. And so we took no money from anybody. We paid for the name, and obviously I've been involved with the magazine for a very long time, so I know a lot of the people involved. And we took it over, and the bankruptcy process took 6-7 months to happen. So it wasn't really until maybe March of 2025 this year that she actually came up and said, "It's here. If you want to buy it, here's what we need to buy the name." And that's what we did. So when people have written and said, "I've got a subscription," one of the first things I wanted to do was to make the first issue free. It's multimedia, lots of interviews, lots of videos. There are also freebies coming out for people who are interested in learning about particular subjects. So I've been trying to offer a lot of things free rather than give back a bunch of money that I never received. So but then again, a lot of the LSA, a lot of my school stuff is free. We have a lot of free meetings and stuff. So I love doing that. I love teaching. I love writing. I love presenting, and I love astrology. So I'm hoping that's contagious, and we bring back some of the long-term subscribers who are back on board with, I hope, the same sort of energy or the love for astrology that Tem had, and sort of to sidestep divisive issues at the moment and just give people astrology that they want.
One thing I recall from what the magazine became, especially in the 2000s, was a breadth of articles, things appealing to people who were just learning, things for actual professionals, more practical tools, and then in-depth and many different modalities. There was, okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
It
yes.
says my connection. Okay, no, I'm giving it a second. I'm getting a message that my connection was lost.
Ah.
All right, I'm back. Thank you, Optimum. Okay. Anyway, there would be Vedic and software reviews and just a really, really wide range of information. Are you keeping kind of the same encyclopedic approach?
Yes, yes, it's open to everyone. We now have a Vedic column that's a regular column. We have a traditional column, and we have a horary column, plus all the regular humanistic, psychological videos, articles, etc. And I really did want the traditional Vedic and horary to be there, but because there's so many great astrologers out there, I emailed people that I know and said, would you be a guest? So we have guest writers for those columns rather than one ongoing writer. And it just gave me an opportunity to feature different voices. But yes, I'm learning as I'm editing and reading. I'm learning more about Vedic from some great names, and traditional stuff as well, and of course horary, which is such a history in astrology. And so we're doing that. What we're not doing as much of are the day-to-day forecasts, mainly because I wanted really each of the magazines to stand on its own and not be dated. So yes, there are month aheads. I do a thing called Best Dates Planner, where I've written the happiest moons of the month to be able to do things, and I give some advice on that. I'm really enjoying doing that. I've got to do one of those tonight, and just writing about what's coming up in the month ahead. So we've got some of that still, but it's not pages and pages of what's happening today, etc., because that goes out of date every 24 hours. So we're a lot of it's going to be online. We're doing 3 issues online a year, and we're also creating approximately 2 to 3 collector's editions. And the collector's editions will be on Amazon, and they'll be able to be purchased and sent directly to anybody in the world. And they'll have, again, non-time specific articles. The first one that's coming out in the collector's edition is November. We've got articles about the moon, daily rituals for better health. We've got interviews with Stephen Arroyo. We've got some fabulous things, but it's not full of the day-to-day forecasting. So it can be a collector's edition that you buy anytime, and hopefully it will be relevant, and it will be something that that you can pick up at any stage and learn from.
We'll put it in the, here we go. Bizarre technical problems have been occurring. Thank you, Mercury. Thank you, Uranus. We'll talk about that in a second. What about humor? Is there room for humor in the new incarnation of the Mountain Astrologer?
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. We've got poems, and you may remember Paul Newman, who did the cartoons.
Yes.
He's based in the UK, and I wrote him and I said, could we please have some unpublished cartoons for the new issue? So we've got at least 1 or 2 of his in per issue, and hoping to have some more. I mean, I'm a great fan of astrology and humor. I've written about it. I wrote a book called Humor in the Horoscope, and I just finished yesterday an article for the collector's edition on the astrology of 40 Towers, you know, the British comedy series. So I just had a moment and thought, oh, I want to write this. So I sat down yesterday and I wrote a piece on the astrology and the synastry between the 2 writers of the show. So that's yeah, definitely humor. We need it, don't we? We definitely need humor and fun, and the idea that humor is being cancelled because it might offend somebody. Well, that's the journey of humor, isn't it? To be able to provoke, to get us thinking, to get us laughing at ourselves, and I think we need a bit of that.
Well, I look forward to that, and I have things zooming through my head. But let me clarify, collector's editions, it will be possible. No, let me back up completely. The subscription base now is what's the model for people getting access to the magazine?
Thank you. So online, you can sign up. You get the June, what we call the Cancer solstice issue, and that lasted June all the way through to September. And that's a freebie. There are some obviously dated pages of some horoscopes in there online, but it's done as a flip book or it's done as separate PDFs, and you have access to over 100 pages of articles on what's coming up, different profiles, all sorts of things. So that was the freebie. So you can just sign up for nothing, have a look at the freebie, see if it speaks to you. We've got some great articles there. The subscription, which is £36, which is about $48 US, is for 3 issues in October, January, and April. And those 3 issues will again be around 100 pages. But in those as well, you get interviews with some great astrologers, chats with different people, a Q&A session. So it's multimedia. You can go on to the flipbook and click on a video while you're watching other things. You can also watch the video of interviews. So that's the online multimedia. But every now and then we will put out a collector's edition that you can buy for those that really want to sit down and have the TMA in their hands. And that's something that people are still asking for. So it's different from the multimedia online, which you can read as a flip book and watch all the pages in front of you, or you can print it out. But there will be the collector's edition that will be printed and available from Amazon. So those are the two things. I've given myself double the work, but I realize that people who may be a little bit computer phobic and need to take their time before they maybe look at a flip book and look at the PDFs, they'll be happy with the collector's edition. Yeah, I hope.
And those will be on a one-off basis. You can buy them individually as they appear.
That's right. Yes. So they'll, yeah.
All right. So now we're going to take our break. So hang on, everybody. And Uranus and Mercury willing, we'll be back really shortly.
Hope so.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. We're talking today about the Mountain Astrologer with Frank Clifford, principal of the London School of Astrology and the person who resuscitated our beloved magazine. And just before the break, we were talking about the various ways that people can access the information. You also have a Substack for the Mountain Astrologer. Is that correct?
We do, yes. In the last, I think, 3-4 weeks, I've written so many articles over the years for the Astrological Journal in the UK and also for TMA. My thought was upload them, and that I have Stephanie who works with me. She's helping with all aspects of TMA, and she knows how to do Substack and been putting everything on there. So yes, it's a great tool, and I'm delighted that some of the writing is staying out there and is accessible.
Is the Substack on a subscription basis?
No, it's free, but it is there to promote the TMA and to get subscribers that way as well. But no, it isn't. And we're hoping to put other articles in. The whole back catalogue of TMA, those 30 years of articles of layouts and copies of the magazine were made available in lieu of any refunds last year by Egregore, by Ray, and we're uploading them again, and they're going to be available to subscribers to be able to just dip into as well.
Excellent.
There's so much there, so much wisdom, and also just watching astrology develop from the issues we have from the early 90s all the way up till last year. So we're slowly putting those on, and we're going to make them available very soon. Yeah.
And I think that there's a Substack post that has to do with the perspective that an astrologer brings into his or her work. Right? Am I right about that? Or like how much what your viewpoints are potentially affect how you interpret what you're seeing in a chart?
Oh, yes. I think it was to do with rectification maybe, and how we have a particular image of certain signs. And that can get in the way of just learning how certain people do things differently from what we imagine. It's a bit like thinking somebody's a Leo and then having a whole range of assumptions when they could be very different and express that creativity, that individuality in a very different way. So I'm a big fan of saying, be aware of the lens with which you look through astrology and look at astrology and work with astrology, because that lens is you. Be aware what you bring to your clients, to your writing, to your talks, because if you're not aware of that, then it can prove a problem.
Right. No, and I've certainly run into that in readings I have received from other people. Um, I find it fascinating. I would like to talk about how we can talk about how astrology has developed, how the skies have developed over the course of this magazine, because it's fascinating that now that we have all the outer planets where they are, that it has become predominantly multimedia. So I did a little looking, and when Tem started his newsletter in 1987. Venus, Saturn, and Uranus were in Sagittarius, and Saturn and Uranus were moving toward a conjunction, and they were trining Jupiter in Aries at that point, and Mercury and Mars were in Scorpio. I don't know if you've looked at the chart for that time.
I have. In one of the tributes to Tim in the free issue online, we discussed the TMA chart. In fact, when it turned 30, if I'm not mistaken, I did a special Moments of Time looking at not only the chart of there, but also looking at all the personally named asteroids of some of the writers and how they appear in the chart. I had such great fun doing that.
I'm gonna have to look for that. And then I noticed that there's like a Sagittarius and Aries signature that I see coming through, because when in December of 2020, when the next owner took it over, Mercury was in Sag and Mars was in Aries, about where Jupiter had been when Tim founded the magazine. And Uranus and Neptune was in Pisces at the current degree of the current north node, which I found fascinating. And this was just before the Jupiter Saturn conjunction at 0 Aquarius. Have you thought much about what was going on when the first reincarnation occurred?
I haven't looked at it massively. I know that the original 87 chart just describes Thames' bold adventure to educate, to bring people together. What a fabulous moment to have the Venus, Saturn, Uranus in Sagittarius, and everything was called the Mountain something at the time, and I think that's why he called it the Mountain Astrologer. But he had a vision, and he would go to conferences. Stephen Forrest, who has written for the most recent TMA, wrote that Tim had a vision, but he would also turn up at conferences, sleep under the table because he couldn't afford maybe to pay for the whole conference or have a room, etc. And he'd just, he'd be there to immerse himself, and people just recognize that vision. And he created something very special. He really did. And I think that's one of the reasons why I struggled so much a few years ago, and when I decided not to buy it, because I didn't want it to die. And when the opportunity came up again late last year and early this year, again, it was a case of, what can I do? And I thought, I'm going to give it 3 years. I'm just going to invest 3 years of energy into this to see where it takes me. It might be that we create a whole range of interesting products that continue to sell and do occasional things. I don't know, but I thought I'd give it another 3 years of life. I haven't seen the 2020 chart much. I know that Ray's chart, my chart, and other key players in TMA, their charts all connect with that original chart. But I think when Ray took it over, it was struggling, as I said, and the magazine business is such a tough one. Over the summer, I've been talking to Barnes and Noble and distributors, and it feels like it's a loss. Just to get it placed anywhere, you're having almost to hand over money and lose money with that. So it needed a different approach, and having the school and having that umbrella where I can just place it into the school means I've got 18,000 people already part of the community who may never have heard of TMA, but putting them together has been probably, if I couldn't do that, I probably wouldn't have taken it over, because I didn't want to be on that conveyor belt that Tem was on, and
Hmm.
both I haven't been on holiday for 27 years. I didn't want to do either of those. So putting it in the school where we do a lot of other things as well, and being able to provide TMA readers and LSA students with different things
Hmm.
has made it possible, really. Yeah.
So how do you think this speaks, or how do you think the astrology of June 25 speaks to this? Because Saturn and Neptune were in Aries, back in the sign where Jupiter had been when Tem started, uh, where Mars was when Ray took it over, Pluto in Aquarius. What do you think? How does this acting out where we are?
Well, I love the idea of Saturn, Neptune, and Aries. We've written a few articles about it in the free issue for people to read. And it's, as I said, times are very divisive. It feels very split. And putting a magazine together where we can be more inclusive again, and generally having astrology where people of many different voices come together with a with the intention to share rather than to argue or to prove which is the best house system or which is the best, what we should use in the chart and what we shouldn't, all of those things. But just bring people together. I always joke, being in Aries with Saturn and Neptune popping into Aries at the moment, I've always called myself a benevolent dictator. So I've never done committees with my school. I've just hired people, paid them on time, looked after them, and not had any of the infighting and the politics and the ego that can happen with any group. Even astrologers who are supposed to be a little bit more enlightened. So I've avoided all of that, and I'm not into committees. I do things myself, but if I surround myself with creative people who've got the same passion, then I can't go wrong, and I'm lucky to have had that over the years. So yes, definitely, Uranus in Gemini feels like a great time to offer different points of view online, to get some reluctant people who don't want to read online to be able to come on and be part of a community. One of the things we have in the school is a community forum for different classes, and there's a TMA forum, so people come in, say what they want to see in the magazine, chat with each other, leave messages, etc. So I'm hoping people will feel, once it really gets going in the coming months, that people will feel that they can come on board and chat and connect and hopefully contribute to the magazine as well.
It feels like this is the time for the publication to be online and multimedia and creating a community with Pluto in Aquarius, and particularly with the recurring grand trine in air that we've been experiencing off every few weeks since August, which will
It's true.
stop.
It's a really special time to be around. I know it doesn't, if you listen to the news, it doesn't feel like that, but in terms of individually and what we can be learning, it's a remarkable time with the mini grand trine, the air stuff. It's a beautiful time in that sense to be learning and to be getting different points of view. Now, I did a talk, I forget what we spoke about. I know we've spoken a couple of times, but I did a talk recently on Uranus in Gemini and the freedom of expression, the need to be talking and expressing yourself without the fear of being cancelled or offending somebody. There's always going to be somebody who's offended just by your presence, maybe. And I spoke about the big issues of Uranus moving through Gemini, and I did an extra talk for the TMA an LSA family. We did that, and that's online and available. But there was a big article that I got published in last year, but I redid it for the free issue of TMA. It's such an important time now to be listening to other people, even the ones that drive you crazy, because we can learn so much. And that's one of the things I said in the lecture and in the article. Think of the people that might drive you crazy. It might be people on the far right, far left, somebody in the middle, it doesn't matter who, and sit with what they're saying and sit with how that makes you feel and come up with a more intelligent argument yourself. Yeah, I don't want to cancel people. I want to hear what they're saying. I may not agree with what they're doing, but my feeling is let's be open to hear it. And if I want the right to say what I want to say, then I've got to give other people that same right. And I can vote with my wallet and not watch them or not buy something of theirs if I don't agree. But I would fight for everybody's right to speak up and find their voice. And one of the fascinating things about Uranus in Gemini, the last time it was there in the 1940s, the week it left, just before it left, that 29 degrees, that very powerful anaretic crisis degree, when Uranus was at the end of Gemini, the book 1984 was published. And I thought that was such a important learning tool. Obviously, Orwell had been writing it while Uranus was in Gemini. He was having his half Uranus return. And it says so much about the importance of having your own voice, being able to express it and not turn into something where we are being cancelled or imprisoned for that. So it feels like we could go down that same route, but I'm hoping that we as astrologers can lead the way, and we can say, look, there are many ways of doing things, and let's learn from each other. And the UAC conference again that's coming up next September in Chicago, 2026. I'm hoping will be an amazing get together of minds, rather than you're over there because you don't do my house system, and I'm over here because I do the asteroids or whatever. I'm hoping we can really help bridge the divide.
House systems have been divisive. Oh my God. Well, anything can be if people want to turn it into a personality contest. I'm curious, what do you think about what will happen so we've got Saturn and Neptune backing into Pisces, and then in November, Uranus backing into Taurus, and they'll be in a sextile for a period of months before we go fully into the Saturn Neptune conjunction coming up in February. What do you have any thoughts on what this might bring, or the prospects that we have because of it?
On a negative level or on a worrying level, I think that Uranus ending its time in Taurus right at those final degrees might bring with it the sort of financial hiccup, or dare I say crisis. I'm worried about that. Already house prices are very low in the UK, and I'm sure in many other places. Things are not worth their value anymore. And I have a feeling that what we're going through at the moment may lead to a problem financially. Taurus has a lot of great qualities, but Uranus and Taurus are two energies that haven't mixed very well. And if we think of Uranus as ideology, the sense of what's out there and what we can bring from the Akashic records into our lives and all of that, in Taurus, it can be very, you're over there, I'm over here, like an earthquake, Uranus and Taurus. And so I think the stubborn standoff of opinion that's divided us for in the last 6-7 years, that's become so apparent, so strongly divided, I think will reach some sort of crescendo when Uranus pops back into Taurus for those few months. And I'm just hoping we can navigate it well. But I think there's a bit of a sting in the tail before we get into Uranus in Gemini. And I'm hoping it won't be a financial one where everybody suffers. I'm hoping it will be more a sort of wake up about ideologies, but who knows? We'll have to see. But the Saturn Neptune in Aries in February and beyond, the era of Neptune in Aries is a reminder to Be Your Own Hero is actually the
Mhm.
title of one of the collector's editions that's coming out early next year. Be your own hero. Have the courage to believe in what you believe in, recognize your lens on the world. Don't get swept away with what other people think, what other people believe. Understand what you believe, what's important to you. And I think that's a great combination of the Neptune in Aries energy along with Uranus in Gemini. Have the courage to dream big, to think what you want to think, and have the courage to express it. Find your voice. I think that's what it's going to be about.
And TMA will be embodying that and leading the way. I find it fascinating with you as an Aries that you're embodying the Jupiter of the launch chart, and you're embodying the Mars of the first relaunch, and now as Saturn and Neptune are firing up that part, here you are again.
Well, I'm going to give it a go. As I said, I'm going to give it 3 years, see where it takes me, see how it develops, see what people really want. And I think you have to be flexible in these times. You can't keep coming up with the same formula and expect people to just keep buying things. Running a school, I've run the London School of Astrology now for 21, 22 years, something like that. And I never take for granted that people come along and they pay for a session online, or they come into London for a Saturday, and because being in London as well, you can do so many things for nothing. You can do it for hundreds of things every day for free. And people to invest in astrology and invest in the school or the magazine, I will never take that for granted. So it just keeps me working hard and trying to be true to the original vision, and also try to keep TMA open to everyone. Stephen Forrest called it a watering hole. The Mountain Astrologer, where people can, from different parts of our tribe, our community, can come together and share ideas, share time, break bread, all of those things. So I love that quote from him. Yeah.
That's a beautiful one. Can you share any of the things that people can, topics or that people can expect to see in the upcoming issues?
Okay, you got me there, because I'm working on about 5 issues at the same time at the moment, because we've had a lot of different articles come in. There'll be those 3 columns I mentioned. I've just finished an article myself on the Moors murderers, which is probably a very gruesome subject for some. Those who, I think, Netflix viewers tend to be obsessed with true life crime, and I was writing about Myra Hindley and Ian Brady a while back, and I decided to create a new article on that, because back in the 60s we talk about the Uranus Pluto conjunction in the mid 60s as being technologically transformative, and it was really the beginning of the workaholic generation, everything from the pill to computers. It was the birth of so many things that changed our society. But no one mentions in England at the time, just I think the day before the Uranus-Pluto conjunction, the most horrendous killings, which of course is a combination of Uranus and Pluto, shock and horror, were coming out. So I decided to write about that. But there's an article on Dolly Parton, who I think is one of those great inspirational people out there, great entertainer. We're doing stuff on Linda Goodman, who's always been a favorite of mine as well. There are articles on almost anything you can think of, not so much politics in that sense, but lots of things going on socially with the planets. So mundane. We've got compatibility guide coming up as well between the signs. There's going to be one on locational astrology for those who are interested in astrocartography and that sort of thing. So there's a lot, and I'm juggling it all at the moment.
How like an Aries. Is there anything else you would like people to know about the magazine, what you're doing, anything you're offering, where people can find you, the magazine, the school, anything? Because you've got just a little time here.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you. One of the the things I've been doing over the years. Now that the school went online about 6 years ago, and with
Oh,
and
so
yes,
yes, can you put up yes, Chris, please put the picture up. We're gonna show people a preview
thank
of
you,
what's coming.
thank you.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, thank you. So we went online about 6 years ago, and it changed everything because we have students from all over the globe turn up for single lectures or full courses, or they watch the videos later, or they come into London. We also have a Saturday issue and stuff. So there's a lot going on with the school. One of the things that felt really, really important, and it happened during my progressed Jupiter turning retrograde, and I've got Jupiter, depending on the house system, I've got it in Aquarius, either in the 8th house or the 9th house. And anyway, it turned retrograde a few years ago, and I thought, now's the time to give back in more ways than simply teaching and writing, etc. And we started doing fundraisers. And in the past 4 or 5 years, we've raised over $100,000, not for the school, but for various charities, organizations. And so I'm going to incorporate that into the magazine, and we're doing different fundraisers for different things. So we've helped children's hospices, for instance, animal shelters. There was last Christmas I did a fundraiser and raised a few $1,000s for a local shop that buys in children's toys for Christmas and for children that don't have access to presents and toys. So it's been, as an Aries, I love to give presents. I love generosity always breeds generosity. Well, not always, but can breed generosity. But I love the idea of giving back and doing something with the popularity of the school and the magazine. So that's something that we're doing. A few times a year, there's through the magazine, through the school, there will be a fundraiser. And we try to pick something that isn't being overwhelmed by donations from other people. You know, it's like some dog charities in the UK get millions and millions of pounds from people, while other tiny little organizations struggle. For example, the children's hospice that I raised money for, they're dealing with the most tragic, painful situation for parents, and so it felt good to be doing something useful and
That's
turning.
wonderful, and I'm going to cut you off here because we've run out of time. I thank you so very, very much for spending time telling us about this, and I encourage everyone to give them the URL. Where do they go?
They can go straight to London School of Astrology.com or mountainastrologer.com. They'll take you to the same place.
Excellent. Thanks very, very much, and I'm very excited that the magazine is back and look forward to seeing more and more and more from it. I'm a subscriber.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to tell people about it.
Excellent. All right, everyone be safe. See you soon.